Hello, welcome to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. Today you are going to learn or recap, as the case may be, about Hexagram 13, the fellowship of man, the listener, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. Hexagram 13 is part of first trimester of ALCIONE, where we accomplish our purpose through mind, initiation, thinking, thoughts. Gate 13 corresponds to goddess KHALI, the dark goddess, the destroyer, the creator, the fierce one, goddess of death and rebirth, death and destruction for those who deserve it, destroyer of false devotions and false attachments. Zodiac sign, Aquarius. Gate 13 flows within the collective sensing circuit, which is about past situations or ideas or events, past experience and sensing, about visual perception. It's about sharing from what we felt in the wave. Keyword, sharing. Center, G, magnetic monopole, regarding identity, direction, love. The harmonic gate is number 33, withdrawal, solitude, being part of the projected channel 1333, the prodigal, a design of a witness. The opposite gate is number 7, army, the role of the self in interaction, aminoacid, glutamine, relevant organ, cerebral amygdala, tarot card associated, 7 of swords. Gate 13 in first trimester in KHALI forms the channel with gate 33 located in the second trimester of Dubai in civilization and form, connecting to Mayat archetype. This way, aminoacid glutamine associated with gate 13 feels the energy of a stop codon in gate 33 in Mayat. Glutamine of gate 13 reaches a stop codon in gate 33. Stop moment is in the throat center. Stop manifesting before impacting, stand still before materializing, or expressing the thoughts of 13 in gate. Be cautious. Stop communicating. Do you have in mind the correct idea, the correct thought to be expressed in second trimester of form? So, KHALI might be a destroyer if she does not stop when meeting the barrier of Mayat in her 33rd gate. A stop codon is something that is easily understood as a general function in relation to amino acids. Otherwise, it takes a while until you understand or accept the functioning of gate 13 in the channel that it makes with gate 33. So, glutamine of the listener meets the stop codon of gate 33, retreat privacy. The listener must retreat in privacy. That is how stop function is operating here. But we'll see later the nuances when we analyze gate 13 and its lines. Now, glutamine is our focus, and then the stop codon I've mentioned. I study amino acids only in relation to human design gates. I am not a specialist in biology. Whatever I tell you about amino acids in any gate represents my own knowledge and personal research. The final purpose being the understanding of human design gates and channels. So, my opinions on amino acids are not supposed to be qualified as recommendations. Glutamine. Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in your body. It plays many important roles in your health, including making proteins for muscle tissue, strengthening your intestines, supporting immune system cells. Your body does make glutamine, but you also get it from foods such as wheat, peanuts, corn, and milk. It's rare to have low levels of glutamine unless you are ill or injured. Almost any food containing protein will contain some glutamine, but amounts vary. The following would be the percentages of protein in 100 grams, made up of L-glutamine in each food in a decreasing order from highest rich in glutamine to the lowest. White rice, corn 16% white rice percent, tofu, 9% skim milk, 8% beef, 4%, eggs, 4%. Remember that although some plant sources, such as white rice and corn, have a large percent of protein made up of glutamine, they have fairly low protein contents overall. Glutamine supports the immune system. Glutamine is the main fuel source for your body's lymphocytes, white blood cells that fight infection and disease. But your blood's glutamine levels drop when you're sick or injured, reducing these immune cells' ability to defend your body. While there's conflicting evidence on whether it boosts immunity in healthy people, studies show it can improve recovery times and reduce complications when you're sick. Glutamine maintains gut health. It is said that glutamine helps strengthen your intestinal lining, protecting against damage and ensuring your body absorbs the nutrients it needs. Because of this, researchers are looking into whether glutamine supplements can help people with digestive disorders, such as Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome, IBD. So far, study results are mixed, with some showing a small benefit and others showing none. So while getting enough glutamine is important to maintain normal gut health, it's not clear if supplemental glutamine can be helpful in cases of gut disorders. Glutamine may help muscle recovery. Glutamine is necessary to maintain muscle protein, which is why it's a popular sports supplement. There are many claims about its ability to speed muscle recovery and improve athletic performance. Some study results show that it reduces muscle fatigue and improves exercise recovery, but this has not been shown to translate into better athletic performance. Glutamine helps treat sickle cell disease. In sickle cell disease, your red blood cells become hard and sticky. They also change their shape and resemble a sickle. When that happens, blockages develop in your blood vessels, blocking the flow of blood and making you more susceptible to infection, anemia, and other serious complications. Glutamine supplements have been shown to help reduce red blood cell damage, keeping them from becoming sticky and misshapen. This helps blood to flow normally. Glutamine helps treat skin burns. Some research suggests that glutamine may help speed the healing of burns and reduce related infections. Does glutamine help in post-surgery recovery? Glutamine may reduce your risk of infection that can result from surgery, such as pneumonia. Some research shows it can help reduce the length of post-surgical hospital stays, but there isn't enough high-quality evidence yet for it to be routinely used after surgery. So, let's think. Can the listener of 13th gate affects, through certain behavior, how your body uses glutamine? Speaking more than listening could impact glutamine level? If the listener do not stop for a proper retreat, then glutamine is impacted and also other amino acids, since glutamine is the most amino acid in the body. I would like to know your opinions in the comments below on how gate 13 might impact the level of glutamine in our body. Take into consideration that we might have gate 13 in an undefined center, in a defined center, or in a channel with 33rd gate. Now, in order to understand what a proper functioning means, in relation to gate 13, you might want to know about stop codon in gate 33rd. If it's boring, just skip to the gate explanations or to the lines. Codon. Stop. A stop codon is to protein synthesis what a period or punctuation mark is to a sentence. Since a protein isn't infinitely long, biology created an incredibly clever way to say, stop, you've reached the end of this protein. In a plain language, proteins are brought here to the stop codon by ribosomes, and we need to understand this process biologically in order to understand the function we want to stop or stand still in our body graph and in our lives. I will try to explain in my own simple language, non-medical, what I learned about. How does the ribosome decode the signals to stop protein synthesis? In cells, all proteins are produced by ribosomes that read messenger RNA, one codon, or 3 nucleotides at a time. Protein translation terminates when a ribosome reaches one of 3 nucleotide sequences that encode for stop codons. These sequences of UAA, ochre, 33, UAG, amber, 56, or UGA, Opal 12, are universal, signaling for translation termination in all kingdoms of life. Gate 33 is the period at the end of the sentence, while Gate 12 is the comma inside a sentence. They both stop, but in a different way. This is why skipping a stop codon or stopping too early produces an incorrect protein, and this type of error is linked to over 10% of human genetic diseases. Thus, accurately decoding stop codons is critical for the normal functioning of all cells. Now, having all this mechanism in mind, let's go back to human design. Gate 13 is known as the Fellowship of Man, the listener, located in the G center, the magnetic monopole, which governs identity, direction, love. This gate is part of the prodigal son channel, 13 and 33. As a channel of reflection, it helps you better understand the past, both your own and that of others. As a channel of a storyteller, it allows you, when you are invited, to share stories and secrets. This channel has the tendency to keep things private until the right moment for sharing, usually by invitation. There is also a sense of being different, often accompanied by deep wisdom. For sharing from this channel, being invited is absolutely essential, and therefore the right moment is the key. Timing is essential. We observe the same pattern to the functioning of the stop codon. It detects the right moment when to cause release factors to bind to the ribosome. At this point, no amino acid is added. We can think of Gate 33's energy as having a form of pause or stop when it comes to communication. This gate doesn't always feel the need to speak. It waits for the right conditions before expressing itself. If the timing isn't right, or the expression isn't clear, the energy might stop or hold back from being expressed. The right time, the right moment comes, first of all, when invitation is there. It is equally important to consider your strategy and authority when acting based on that invitation. Thus, in a metaphorical sense, Gate 33 might be seen as a stop in terms of knowing when not to share the secrets, not to speak, when to retreat, hold back and reflect, much like a stop codon signals the end of a sequence, allowing no further actions to occur. This cautionary aspect is built into the nature of Gate 33. It is not impulsive, but waits for alignment before speaking, waits for invitation, maybe waits for recognition, according to your type. The function of a stop codon is to signal the end of protein synthesis during the process of translation. Translation is when the ribosome reads the messenger RNA sequence and assembles amino acids into a protein. Stop codons serve as termination signals that tell the ribosome when to stop adding amino acids and release the newly formed protein. In essence, stop codons play a critical role in ensuring that proteins are produced with the correct length and structure, maintaining the accuracy of genetic expression. The reality is that ribosomes do not always stop at stop codons. Certain chemicals in your body can actually prevent ribosomes from detecting stop codons correctly. Likewise, 33rd gate people. Sometimes they do not stop at the right moment, they are not cautious, and by doing so, their health might be impacted. Pay attention to the signals, as we learned that, and I repeat, stop codons serves as termination signals that tell the ribosome when to stop adding amino acids and release the newly formed protein. Well, this is what I know about stop codons, and I try to share in an easy-to-follow language. I hope it's useful for the understanding how Gate 13 behaves. Either it's in the channel or not. So since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of Gate 13, now let's dive into the 13th gate message and energy. This gate is located in the G center and is associated with the collective memory. It's about listening to and hearing the stories and life experiences of other people. Individuals with this active gate are often very empathetic. They have an innate quality to easily understand the perspective of others. The 13 listens on very different levels. Gate 13 really makes the difference between hearing and listening. Listening basically means you absorb the sound, then it resonates within you, and finally, what you've listened is going to shift something of the experience that you have in your life. We go on with this gate, but the basic idea that you have to remember from the very beginning is that listening is very different from the more passive experience of simply hearing. Hearing is about remembering only some bit of information. Hearing is not about absorbing the sound, resonance, and shifted experiences. Gate 13 is one of the role gates, being part of the collective process, the abstract and sensing part of the collective. The fellowship of man. This gate is extremely important for what it is to be a human being. You know that the abstract circuitry represents our experiential way, which is literally the way of being human. This experiential way begins into the 41st hexagram, the initiating codon, the unique methionine. Here, it's the beginning of human experience, and gets completed in this channel 33 and 13, channel of the witness and the prodigal. What you need to understand about the nature of any abstract process, including the process of this channel, nothing is really learned until the process is really over. The essential thing about being in the abstract is to dive into the experience because unless one is totally absorbed within the experience, one does not accumulate, does not absorb enough information for a proper reflection later. Within the abstract circuitry, your way of correct functioning is to always looking in the rearview mirror. Otherwise, you are bound to miss certain things that you have passed. The abstract, sensing circuitry is different from the individual process, which is about the individual direction, about being the direction. The role of individuality is about being able to release the role in the now, of just being able to get the creative process out. Collective roles, instead, are totally different in their mechanics to get something out in the world. Let's recap the main ideas. The logical collective role will project into the future, and the abstract collective role will always look backwards into the past. Logical collective establishes where it is going, and abstract collective establishes where it has been. This gives a sense of continuity and a sense of well-being. Everything about the security and the stability of our existence is related to the collective field and can be seen in your dose of collective circuitry within your chart. The 13th gate is the gate of the listener, but more important than that, it is a gate of secrets because it collects the reflections of the past. If you don't have the 13 in your design and you're around people with the 13, you'll likely find yourself telling them everything. Spilling the beans. They just naturally tune into what's going on. Gate 13 gives you the ability to listen deeply and collect the stories of others, while at the other end of the channel, Gate 33 allows you to find the right time to share what you've learned. When aligned, you can harmoniously reflect on the past and guide others by helping them to process their experiences, offering insight, and encouraging growth. You have a way of helping people find meaning in their own journeys, making you a powerful storyteller and guide for others. This is one of the many gates within the rave system that is specifically associated with the memory. Above the lines in the hexagram, it says, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. Let's fragment the phrase into logical units and analyze their message. First unit, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework. This is a way of saying that there is a whole process of collecting the past, collecting history. The time is the continuity value of time. Or, in the case of the passenger driving in the car, the distance is the continuity. We see this continuity in our calendars. We have a big date coming up, 2027. It gives us this sense of continuity, and we can all look back 2,000 years and can say, well, we have completed this continuity. Second unit, which inspires humanistic cooperation. The continuity and the collection of history we talked about inspires humanity, bringing humanistic cooperation. This is a big difference to the mammalians because we have the capacity to store information from the past, to store memory, and then we are able to exchange it, to share it within the collective process. This is why, being inspired, being able to store memory, we do not have to start over every generation. The past makes sense to us based on continuity, on collection of history, on memory storage. Historical continuity informs our future as a species. Without Gate 33, secrets may never be shared. This sharing of history is indeed inspiring to humanity. It is a much faster process today, for example, than it was 100 years ago. Our collection system is faster, our dissemination potential is faster, and the faster we get, the more advanced each generation is from the previous one, because it gets to learn very quickly the essential information that has been accumulated by the previous generation, and it gets to learn it right away when it comes into the world. This is an advantage and also a role of the 13th gate, to store our experience, to collect our history in order to inspire humanity with it. Walking through the 6 lines of the Gate 13, it's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 13th gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 13 plays its role and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 13, line 1, empathy. The ability to relate and commune with everyone with equanimity. Here, the line is about relating, about being opened, and it's about relating to and communing with everyone equally. In other words, the person with 13 gate in the first line knows that no matter who you are, what your background is, how important you might think you are, how disastrous you think your life situation is, he or she is wide open. They are listeners. They transmit the fact of being a part of the fellowship with man. This is an ability that we learn in the lifetime and not something to be learned right away. The first line always lays out the foundation of the hexagram. The basic message in this hexagram is about the empathic process. The line is called empathy, and it is an overview line, which means that the lower trigram does not know that there is anyone to listen to, and everything they hear is sort of by accident. In other words, they really get secrets in a way. They hear things that they did not even realize they were supposed to hear or could hear, and suddenly they have access to it. Your friendliness with others aligns the world around you. You might see, if you've got the 13th gate, you are a natural friend. People are just going to find you. And what does it take to be friendly? Essentially, it's just a matter of pausing to listen, seeing what's going on in other people's lives. Ask yourself, why are they crossing your path in the first place? You are the empathic first line of Gate 13, with the ability to relate and commune with everyone, with evenness of emotions or temper, with serenity and equilibrium. This ability is a skill that requires sensibility. Indeed, your sensibility spreads the feeling of harmony and connectedness through everyone. You just have this sense of people being embraced in one way or another. They're welcome. Now, that doesn't mean that every neighbor Johnny or classmate Maddie or Harry may come anytime and ruin your day by telling you all sorts of terrific personal things. It's just that people are drawn to you, and your friendly disposition will enhance the atmosphere. Venus exalted. Harmony through affection. A role of openness in listening to others with affection. The 13th gate is the role of the self in its openness for interaction with others, in its ability to be receptive to others, and because this is a gate that collects history, it collects people's stories. It is by its very nature an empathic gate. It is always pulling people to it in that sense. In the White Book, we have this Venusian role of openness in listening to others with affection. Affection is one of the basic premises of getting secrets out of people. For example, in some movies where you have the good cops and the bad cops, The good one is so sweet that he always gets the real story, gets the secrets. This is empathic listening with affection. The moon in detriment. The politician kissing babies. An openness that is never free of motives. This is superficial affection, but at the same time, the politician that is ready to go out and to kiss the babies is empathic enough to hear the stories of the parents. In the White Book, an openness that is never free of motives. It is very important to understand that motive is an essential part of the 13th gate process because the 13 is burdened by other people. Since it does not see the 33rd gate, the lower trigram always feels the burden the greatest. They say, "Why do people bother me? I have to listen to them." There is a genuine affection built into this gate, where it does tend to listen for the sake of soothing the other rather than for what it thinks it is going to hear, or for the value of what it is going to hear is. It is just collecting in that sense. The value of what it is going to hear is not relevant for this line. Gate 13, line 2, bigotry. Second line is about projecting to the world, about being natural and talented, but it doesn't know. The second line always has a natural approach to things, and as long as they stay natural, everything goes very well for them. But the moment things become complicated or overly sophisticated, or if their intimacy or private space is disturbed, they can get into trouble. Second lines, they do not know when they are natural. They do not know how their qualities operate. They do not know what they are projecting to the others. In line with this idea, one of the things you must have noticed in your work with human design is that second lines have weird names, and they are often deeply misunderstood, like the 58.2, perversion, the 46.2, prima donna, the 18.2, terminal disease, or degeneracy in the 48 line. 2. Second lines have strong names, and people are always very concerned about them, mostly because they simply cannot understand how the line actually works. Remember what I already outlined, as being a second line, that other people are seeing you as that aspect. They are looking inside of you and see you. What happens to the 13.2 is that everybody who steps into the aura of a 13.2 assumes that line 2 is going to listen to them empathetically. They just assume it. Naturally, the 13.2 is minding its own business, not listening and not needing to hear anything in particular. All of a sudden, there is somebody stepping into its aura and telling it things, and the 13.2 is quite surprised. What happens to the 13.2 is that they end up listening to all kinds of different voices they have no control over, and they end up being quite frankly disgusted by it. Think about being a child with line 2. They hear that people have a lot of bullshit to say. Even so, the second line is going to be fair and has the potential to see the two sides to every story and remaining unbiased. You have the possibility of humoring and clarifying in all interactions. You may not agree with someone's story, but you can accept that life is an experience, and we all learn things as we go along. Another aspect of second lines is that they don't necessarily like being interrupted. So, if a total stranger comes up and starts telling you all these terrific things about their own life, your natural response in that moment might be to tell them to go bother somebody else, especially if you feel that this person has disrupted your natural flow, has abruptly come into your aura. The key to the natural capacity of second line is fairness, and being empathic requires fairness. If someone has a story to tell, it may not be for you, or you may not be in a space to hear it, but you can honor this person and their story. I told you earlier in this material that the 13 gate is really here to distinguish and also to collect the values and ideals that we have experienced in order to inspire humanity. Gate 13.2 is forced to listen to all sort of different people, to get all these people in their life telling them things that they did not ask for. This is why they end up being quite discriminatory. In this line, called bigotry, there is always the risk that fellowship can only exist for a particular type, whether racial, religious, national, or intellectual. If this would dominate in the world, indeed it's a risk for humanity. It is part of what we have in the world, a lot of bias and prejudgment. Prejudgment can be positive or negative. You can have a 13.2 that has a relatively clean psyche, and their prejudgment is something that they learn to deal with, because they learn to see that human beings just don't have always something worthwhile to contribute. Or, on the other side, you have all kinds of people that will take the 13.2 and turn that into a reason to dislike the other. So it is, indeed, a risk for humanity. There is this moment for a 13.2 where all of a sudden, people that you never expected to have something important to say or to contribute, they do so. Usually you see that children. Here is the possibility that you can actually hear something worthwhile from the unexpected. Children can say something very profound, and it just changes the 13.2. Moon exalted. Tolerance as the least offensive manifestation of bigotry. In the White Book, a role of openness through tolerance. Second lines are being opened by their tolerant attitude towards those who come to be listened, or to share to the second line, an exaltation, like a confession to the priest. The 13.2 that has the exalted has to suffer many fools in their lives, and they wonder, why am I listening to all this stuff? In the detriment, the obsessive belief that the highest ideals cannot be embraced by the lowest forms. That is indeed an extremely difficult position, where even the highest ideals become a foundation to justify for hatred. It is very easy, given the experience of what it is to be human, to find things to dislike about human beings. We might have been in this position in our lives, and we feel the message of this detriment. We find things to dislike about the people that we love the most. After all, we are very good at finding things that we dislike about other human beings. It is quite a common thing. The detriment in the White Book, a role of openness so narrow that there is practically no one worth listening to. These people do not listen to anyone. They do not have the openness because they consider these people are all fools and they are just bothering me. It does not mean that will nor hear what they have to. After all, they are gate 13.2 in the abstract circuitry. That's why this line is deeply social. We are talking about the collective gate, which is by its very nature social. This collection of history is a social phenomenon that we used to have as oral history when the shaman of the tribe tells the story of their fathers and grandfathers. Thus, a tradition of knowledge is built based on the communication of experience. Gate 13.2 and detriment can end up being quite bitter about the nature of what humanity really is. This is why we can understand them being the bigots. As a key conclusion for the second line of Gate 13, you must remember that the answer for all second lines is rooted in the individual process in the 10.2. That says, be a hermit, and in the 12 Gate line 2, purify yourself from all negative forces. Gate 13, line 3, pessimism. The theme of a third line is adaptation, trial and error, mutation. Keywords: martyr, perseverance, creativity and finding out what it does not work. Anarchist, bringing progress, bonds made and broken. A third line is well endowed with all resources and tools to go through errors and mutation. In this third line, you will have trial and error in who you listen to. It is not the uncontrolled process, as it is for a second line. This is a process of tuning in through trial and error who you listen to, who you take in to hear, and because that it is for sure a lifelong process, now you start to understand why this line is called pessimism. Third lines are experimental. They jump into experiences sometimes without necessarily knowing the repercussions. They're risk takers, and they learn to be self-reliant. In this line regarding how you listen, this means relying on yourself rather than trusting or following someone else's story. Here, in this line, you find the belief that what is best can never be achieved. This is its learning process. What happens to it is that the moment that you listen to a certain type, you'll hear what you do not want to hear, or you'll see in that person what you do not want to see. Then you will listen to another type, and so on, and you'll get to the same. You hear what you don't want to hear, you see what you don't want to see. Here you go through a process of disappointment in life regarding the nature of what a human being is. We all know that everyone has an advice out there to be offered. There's all kind of good advice available, but it's most important that you discern, examine that advice. This is best done by listening to your authority and strategy. Your type has the intelligence to deal with this kind of decisions. Remember how creative you are in finding out what it does not work, and how well equipped you are for this pessimism. The earth exalted, a lack of trust that can only be transformed through concrete evidence. This line becomes very suspicious of people. Earth exalted in this line requires for evidence, not only speculation. They want to make sense out of the past, and by that, to bring the possibility for mutation. They become deeply mistrusting of them, and they are the kind of people that know a kind of storyline being delivered to them. They are very good at hearing the propaganda, the lie. They go through mistrust and failure cycle when following others' advice, if they do not ask for evidence. If trusting, without asking for evidence, they might have felt like being taken for a fool or taken advantage of by someone they trusted. This is why this line requires for concrete evidence that builds trust. In the White Book, openness that is conditioned by suspicion and seeks evidence. These people always say, "Show me. Let me see exactly what it is. I want to see the evidence with my own eyes. Then I'll have the openness to listen, to trust." They are pessimistic about the true value of what they listen until there is a clear evidence and proof that eliminates suspicion. Venus in detriment. Pessimism exalted to an art form, whereas art, it may have the opposite effect. Satire, where the rightness of suspicion can inspire satire. I will quote Ra'uruhu about this detriment line. The one thing about realizing that human beings don't live up to the ideal is that they are also humorous in the way that they do not live up to the ideal. One can call that black humor, but it can become art. It can become satire. In other words, rather than trying to inspire humanity with history and facts, which can be quite brutal, this is satire. The satire can have the same effect. It can inspire humanity. As you see in the description of this detriment, the risk is that the satire may have the opposite effect, meaning it might be taken seriously by some people, which is really quite astonishing. The impact of pessimism as art is that it humiliates us to the point that we laugh at ourselves, and perhaps this has some impact on our direction. Because the 13th gate is a gate of secrets, it is a gate where memory is stored, how that memory is shared. It is dependent on the 33rd gate. More than that, this third line is in the lower trigram, and it does not know what and who is to the other end of the channel. This is why very often that satire can be cruel and bitter, and sometimes 13.3 can say things to people that are devastating, which is actually their form of satire, but can be taken as something that is bitterly cruel. Gate 13, line 4, fatigue. Now, in the upper trigram, the fourth line has a very different process of listening, of dealing with secrets. It's different than the lower trigram we've just detailed. Lines 1, 2, and 3 are very personal. The fourth and fifth are transpersonal. This line is called fatigue, and it is here to listen. In the fourth line, there is an opportunity as a possibility for expression out of the throat. They see the other part of the channel. They see the 33, which the lower trigram does not have access to. The lower trigram does not know that the possibility is out there that someone will tell it something. But the fourth line knows that. It is ready to listen, and it just keeps on listening. Because of that, it does not get to do the most important thing, which is that after listening comes the retreat. Reflection. This is somebody who decides that they will write a great book about the experiences of people whom they listened, but they never write their book because they are just listening and recording people endlessly. And this is why they are exhausted. They are totally burned out by the process of just going through listening. This is fatigue. Overview line. The point of exhaustion eventually reached when one is too tired to fight. This will have a deep significance, depending on the nature of the design and type. If you have an energy type, they will listen longer than those who are not. The energy and the non-energy type, though both will still reach the same point of exhaustion, they will reach it at different times in their lives. Pluto exalted. The renaissance that comes with truce and its eventual reinvigoration. This is the only line in the 13 that is Pluto related, and this is a generation that was born in the 1940s or 1950s. What this line is saying, and that this is the moment where you stop the listening. They finally learn to stop listening. They have heard enough. They do not need to hear anymore. Openness, which leads to exhaustion, and the need for silence. If you just keep listening and listening, then you become exhausted. But at least you feel the need for silence, and this might be the need for reflection afterwards. There must be this space, otherwise, it does not work. Venus, in detriment. Emotional exhaustion, appeasement, and withdrawal. The abstract process is deeply related to the solar plex system. A and F from that with have the emotional aspect of Venus in detriment. The entire human experiential way is conditioned by the solar plexus. Those people who are 13s end up taking in an enormous amount of emotional energy in their life. Somebody goes down in their emotional wave, seeks out the 13 to unburden themselves, and the 13 ends up taking it all in. Now, it's a different way of processing between people with undefined emotional systems who end up being very sick, whereas 13 gate people with a defined emotional system that can survive it because they generate their own wave. The detriment in the White Book, a role where openness is a vulnerability. People in fourth line have a gift for externalizing, for being influential. While externalizing the listening, in this detriment, they don't know how to stop listening. Only when they get to the point of exhaustion do they stop. As an example, these are those people that end up working as social therapists, and they build their schedule so that they have people talk to them all day long, every day. After 3 or 4 months, they collapse. They get very sick, take 3 weeks off to recuperate because they are very ill, and then they go back into exactly the same program because they do not know how to stop listening unless they are exhausted. The other side of this line, the gifted ones, remember that they can hear things without anybody actually saying a thing. We might say it's a sort of clairvoyance. It just penetrates through. Somebody comes into the room and they already know what's going on. They've automatically picked up what it is that's happening. But what you should know is that the sensitivity to hearing a great inner depth is exhausted when exposed to plain noise. You either accept those who respect your nature or actively seek solitude and silence. So, there are some people who understand that you can see them in depth, and they will not exhaust you. Those who don't understand what you see will simply leave you exhausted and overcommitted. Gate 13, line 5, the Savior. There is that projection on fifth liner that they will listen, but it's not necessarily true. You have to consider that a fifth line may not be willing to listen to others. However, this is a projected field, and the fact is that we, society as a whole, make that projection, considering listeners to be our saviors. This is because of being human and about being here to share with each other the nature of what it is to be in the world. This is why we call these people saviors. We give great spiritual value to such a name. It is our salvation that we are able to share with each other, and in that way, to be able to inspire new generations with what we have been able to achieve in our experience. As an advantage, we make it a lot easier for them. So, 13.5s can be honored in this life. They can also be deeply burdened. The Savior, the ability to overcome all obstacles for the betterment of humanity. They really overcome obstacles in listening, because the most silent people will open and talk to a fifth line, because they recognize the Savior. This way, the fifth line gets the secrets, overcoming the obstacle of communication with deeply silent people. These people do not really think that a fifth line is a savior, but they sense the opportunity to unburden themselves. One of the reasons why we have partners in this life is so that we have somebody we can say to, "I had a terrible day today." We really need that. It is part of being human. Humanity feels saved when telling secrets to a savior, and that's where the betterment of humanity lies. This ability to overcome obstacles for the betterment of humanity gives you the gift for finding the purpose in everyone and for everything. You have this natural ability to take people who have been knocked out of orbit, people who are unclear about where they are in life, and find them a place in life. Neptune, exalted. The charismatic genius who can find a role for everyone. The listener that has a gift for finding a role for others. When Neptune is exalted, you don't really know what is going on in that gate, and this can already be a dilemma. It's fine to let Neptune to be exalted and not to bother with searching that gate too much. If you do so, you have a spiritual opportunity. In the White Book, the listener that has a gift for finding a role for others. Remember that this is the perspective of the driver looking backwards. We have gone this way, that way, and the other way, and by the 13.5 listening, they can see how that person fits into those various roles. This is your way. I know all about this way. Let me tell you about this way. Jupiter in detriment here is not very detrimental. The able administrator. Given the extreme positive nature of this position, mundane application is rare. Extreme is a word that is not used very often. In the White Book, the listener whose gift for finding a role for others is practical and suited to administration. Remember the example of the child with gate 13 line 5. This baby comes into the world, is not a savior, and yet this baby gets to hear his mother's laments. The mother does not realize that the baby is listening all her words. They hear things growing up that they do not necessarily want to hear. They find out things that they do not necessarily want to find out, and they get to experience things they do not necessarily want to experience. There is a great advantage because people are willing to tell them things, and this is the projection of being a listener. This is why the fifth line knows a lot of things. Therefore, they can be of value to humanity in being able to share that experience. Whether or not that gets out is another story. I say that because this is a gate that has great transpersonal skills, but it still has to find the 33 at the other side in order to express itself properly. Gate 13, line 6, the optimist. When you look at the 13.6, think about the 59.6. Think about it in the sense that this is the course of promiscuous listening that takes place when one is young and quickly ends because one ends up looking for the soulmate to listen to, that perfect person or thing to listen to. Sitting up there on the roof of the house, there is the dream that there is really an experience, that there is really something that is worth listening to and worth reflecting upon for the benefit of humanity. The optimist. The ability to accept any limited interaction, this is in the early part of life, as a necessary step towards greater union. Remember that this is the harmony to the third line of pessimism, where one is constantly disappointed by what one meets in the world, that human beings are mundane, that what they talk about is not very interesting. It is just the same old human stuff, and it is very easy to become pessimistic in the third line. But the sixth line knows better, in the sense that it is transpersonal. It looks to the whole circuitry, to the whole experiential way, and it knows that in that experience, there are things of value that always come out. So there is hope. Mars exalted, the energy to persevere, unlimited hope. In the White Book, the hope that openness will lead to better relationships. The whole thing about the listener is not about what the listener is hearing. It is through whom the listener hears, because this is so deeply social. This is about collecting history from others so that, in the end, the optimism is about the quality of the experience in the people that you meet. Mercury in detriment, naivete. The abstract process is connected to the emotional wave and recognizes that hope is part of our life. It's the nature of the world. It knows that there are things that can be hoped for because in the cycle of things they can be fulfilled. That naivete is often a presumption of others, but as you see, the hope is not naive. It can be fulfilled, as we observed in the past, in the cycle of things. The translation of mutual interest into universality. The belief that mutual interest can be projected on others. The moment that the 13.6 finds some commonality with somebody, there is this sense that maybe everybody could be like this, or maybe everybody could do this. So this detriment sounds positive. It is about trying to find a way in which, through relationships, the experience of humanity is something that is uplifting. Being 6 line, it always looks from the altitude of roof to the first line of the next gate. So it looks at gate 49, line 1. It is interested in emotional principles. This 13.6 goes to 49.1, the place that will establish what we really need. What are our needs? Way is necessary, is the theme of the 49.1. The optimist on the roof has hopes, but at the same time, it's thinking about 49.1. Do I know what is really necessary? Combining 13.6 with 49.1, the message is, do I know what is really necessary to hope for? What it is looking for is a hope for what is necessary, because what is necessary will ultimately make the difference in the life experience. Another aspect that's important to outline for the nature of 13.6 is that there is no reasonable expectation from them to listen once they mature, because they often just don't. Like all 6 lines, they have that possibility for truly wise experiences. Gate 13. Line 6 is only naive when it's young, but only as an assumption of others. It does not mean it is real. What I mean is, when you speak to an adult who is an optimist and they are full of hope, you tend to look at them as if they were naive. Most hopes in life that are really big hopes get shattered in the way life works. So when you meet adult telling you, I know that a better world will come, Messiah is coming, we think that they are naive, but actually they are not. It is just the way they appear to be. It is not naive. It is part of what it is to be human, which is to suffer and to be hopeful at the other side. This is life. Human beings of gate 13.6 find hopes for whatever is mutually necessary in life experience, and they project it on others. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 13th gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 13th hexagram. Right angle, cross of the Sphinx, consisting of following gates: 13, 7, 1, 2. People with an individual direction, whose unique way of remembering experiences brings a living, vibrant past into the future. You are here to be intuitive about the past. You are here to provide guidance in reconciling the past by assimilating history, to draw out the nugget of advice from what has already occurred. Juxtaposition. Cross of listening, consisting of following gates: 13, 7, 43, 23. Great listeners and secret keepers who often explain themselves and their breakthrough insights best through an art form. You are here to listen and collect the history of events and episodes in this life. However, this configuration is not conducive to expressing this history. It is a history, event, or secret that very few will ever know. You have great skills as a listener, and there are many ways to use this talent. Lawyers, doctors, and psychologists all draw on this skill to help their clients while keeping their information confidential. left angle cross of masks consisting of following gates: 13, 7, 43, 23. People whose explanations and insights, which potentially transform, lead, and guide others, work best when given from behind a mask, like a PhD. As the left angle cross of masks, you are here to look at the past and give direction through your own mutative process. You wear the masks because there is pressure on you to give direction. Sometimes that expectation can make you experience melancholy, as your cross expresses individual energy that is looking for the higher love with the another. The twist is that your individual energy is about individual expression, which can sometimes struggle when trying to love others simply because then it is no longer just individual. Remember that to find love, you have to start the journey alone, or you would already have love. This is your mutative process that you demonstrate for others. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening, and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative learning materials regarding human design. Thank you.